Dr. Sarah Chen's transport shuttle touched down on the forest moon of Viridian 7 3 hours after sunset. She could see the glow of the camp through the trees, dozens of small lights flickering like fireflies in the darkness. Her heart sank. The welcome ceremony was long over, and the young ones would already be settled in their sleeping quarters. Sarah grabbed her equipment bag and stepped onto the soft moss covering the landing pad. The air smelled of pine and something sweeter, like honey mixed with rain. This was her first assignment with the Galactic Youth Development Program, and she had already managed to mess it up. The transport delay wasn't her fault, but she knew first impressions mattered, especially when working with alien children. The camp coordinator, a tall Zentari named Vokresh, met her at the edge of the clearing. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of mild concern among his species. "Dr. Chen, we were beginning to worry." "I'm so sorry," Sarah said, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "The transport had engine trouble near the asteroid belt. Is it too late to meet the cubs?" Vokresh's mouth parts twitched in what Sarah had learned was the Zentari equivalent of a smile. "Come, you should see something first." He led her along a winding path through the camp. Sarah could see the main pavilion, the dining area, and several clusters of sleeping tents arranged in neat circles. Each species had their own section, designed to meet their specific environmental needs. The Krell cubs needed humid air, the Thorian young required cooler temperatures, and the Maklar children needed stronger gravitational fields in their rest areas. But Vokresh wasn't leading her to any of these sections. He walked toward a small clearing at the far edge of camp, near a stream that babbled over smooth stones. In the center of the clearing stood a tent. Sarah stopped walking. It wasn't like the other tents in camp. Those were manufactured uniform structures made from advanced materials that adjusted to their occupants' needs. This tent was different. It had been assembled from natural materials found in the forest, branches woven together with vines, large leaves carefully overlapped to create a waterproof roof. A small stone circle sat in front with kindling arranged for a fire. Next to the entrance, someone had placed a collection of smooth river stones arranged in a pattern. "I don't understand," Sarah said softly. Vokresh gestured toward the tent with one of his lower appendages. "When you did not arrive, the cubs became concerned. They asked me many questions. Where was their human instructor? Was she hurt? Was she lost? I explained about the transport delay, that you would arrive but later than planned." He paused, his eyes blinking again. "Then something unusual happened. The Krell cub, Mish, said that humans must be very sad when they arrive somewhere and have no home waiting. The Thorian younglings agreed. They said they had learned in their pre-camp studies that humans come from a single planet, not a widespread species like most of ours. They said humans must feel lonely, traveling so far from their one world." Sarah felt her throat tighten. She had read the profiles of all 23 cubs in her group, ranging from ages equivalent to 6 to 9 in human years. They came from 7 different species, each with different biologies, cultures, and ways of thinking. But she hadn't expected this. "The cubs asked if they could build you a shelter," Vokresh continued. "I told them you would have standard quarters like all instructors, but they insisted. They said humans like to build things with their hands, that it makes them feel connected to a place. They asked to go to the forest to gather materials." He started walking toward the tent, and Sarah followed. As they got closer, she could see the details more clearly. The frame was sturdy, the joints bound with careful knots that showed patience and precision. The leaf covering was arranged in overlapping layers that would shed rain efficiently. Someone had even dug a small drainage trench around the perimeter. "I supervised, of course," Vokresh said, "but the design and construction were entirely theirs. The Krell cubs used their natural ability to sense structural integrity to ensure the frame was sound. The Thorian younglings have excellent fine motor control and tied all the knots. The Maklar children calculated the optimal angle for the roof slope. The Zentari Hixian, Drell, and Vortian cubs gathered materials and worked on the details. Sarah knelt down to examine the stone pattern near the entrance. Up close, she realized it wasn't random. The stones formed words in standard galactic script. "Welcome home, Teacher Chen." "They finished just before dark," Vokresh said quietly. "Then they went to their quarters without being asked." "I have been a camp coordinator for 19 cycles, Dr. Chen. I have never seen the different species collaborate like this. Usually it takes weeks before they stop clustering by their own kind." Sarah stood up, blinking back tears. "They did this for someone they've never met?" "They did this for their human," Vokresh corrected. "All 23 of them worked together. They were careful not to harm any living plants, only using fallen branches and naturally shed leaves. The Krell cub, Mish, insisted on that. She said humans care about not hurting growing things." Sarah walked to the tent entrance and carefully pushed aside the flap. Inside, she found a sleeping mat woven from soft grasses, a small folding stool that must have come from the camp supplies, and a lantern hanging from the center pole. In one corner sat a basket filled with various items: a water container, some fruit from the camp stores, a blanket, and a small clay bowl filled with the sweet-smelling flowers that grew near the stream. On the mat lay a piece of bark with more words carved carefully into its surface. Sarah picked it up and read, "We learned that humans get tired when they travel in space. We learned that humans like to rest near water. We learned that humans need to feel welcome. We hope we did it right. We are happy you are here. From all the cubs." Each cub had added their mark next to the message, 23 different symbols representing 7 species, united in one purpose. Sarah carefully set down her equipment bag and sat on the woven mat. The tent smelled of forest and earth, of effort and care. Through the open entrance, she could see the stars beginning to appear through the canopy of trees, unfamiliar constellations that marked her distance from Earth. But in this moment, in this tent built by small hands and appendages and manipulators of every shape, she didn't feel far from home at all. Vokresh still stood outside. "Your standard quarters are prepared if you prefer them. I should note that this structure, while charming, does not have climate control or proper amenities." Sarah looked around the tent again, at every carefully placed leaf, every precisely tied knot, every thoughtful detail. "No," she said. "This is perfect. This is exactly where I need to be." The Zentari's eyes blinked in approval. "I thought you might say that. The cubs will be pleased. They have been checking every few minutes to see if you had arrived, if you had found their gift. I finally sent them all to sleep with a promise that they would meet you first thing in the morning." "Can you take me to them now?" Sarah asked, standing up. "Just for a moment? I won't wake them. I just want to see them." Vokresh hesitated, then nodded. "Come. Quietly." They walked back through the camp to the sleeping quarters. Vokresh led her first to the Krell habitat, where the air hung thick and warm. Through the transparent section of the shelter, Sarah could see 3 small forms curled together, their scales gleaming softly in the dim light. One of them, the smallest, clutched something in her sleep. Sarah looked closer and realized it was a small branch, probably left over from building the tent. They visited each habitat in turn. The Thorian younglings, with their 6 limbs tucked close to their bodies. The Meklar children in their higher gravity chamber, their metallic skin reflecting the stars visible through the ceiling panels. The Zentari, Hixian, Drell, and Vortian cubs, all sleeping peacefully in their respective areas. 23 children from 7 worlds, who had never met her, who had come together to build something beautiful for a stranger simply because she was far from home. Sarah returned to her tent as the forest moon's second moon rose above the trees. She lit the small fire in the stone circle, watching the flames catch and grow. Tomorrow she would begin teaching them about earth science, biology, and human culture as part of the exchange program. But tonight, she realized they had already taught her something far more important. Humanity had reached the stars later than most species. Humans had arrived at galactic civilization when others had already built empires spanning sectors. They were the newcomers, the latecomers to a very old community. But perhaps that wasn't what mattered. Perhaps what mattered was not when you arrived, but how you were welcomed, and how you welcomed others in return. Sarah lay down on the woven mat and pulled the blanket around her shoulders. Above her, the leaf roof filtered the moonlight into patterns of shadow and silver. She fell asleep smiling, ready to meet the cubs who had built her a home before they had ever seen her face, who had shown her that sometimes the smallest hands can build the biggest bridges between worlds.